watching the SA Sports Show. Time to talk SANFL, and as always, the master, Luke Marchioro, joins us, the master of the SANFL. Lukey, thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Mate, what an interesting weekend. 2 draws.
Yes.
Last time, maybe 40, 50 years ago?
I think 1958 was the last time, so a very long time. I don't think anyone wants to play finals in this competition.
It's unbelievable.
Those 3 teams, North, Port and Centrals, just seem to be giving each other opportunities to play finals every week, and sets up for a really interesting final round heading into this weekend.
And in both those games, Luke, the team, one of the teams was 6-7 goals down in the third quarter.
Yeah, Port looked in real trouble there, 41 points down, and South Adelaide were playing as good a footy as they had for the season. Then sparked by their small forwards, Razio Fantasia and Francis Evans really kicked them into gear, and they played some really good footy, and South were probably lucky to come away with a point in the end because Port were really finishing really strongly.
And Westies the same.
Westies were as well against Norwood. Played some really good footy again, West Adelaide, in patches, and just continue to be unlucky, and just one of those teams that just don't know how to win. And they've shown a lot of improvement this year. I think they've lost 8 games, including the draw, by less than 17 points or something. And yeah, they just haven't stuck on the bottom of the ladder, but not by just need a bit of luck.
Now, mate, I don't like to say this, Phil, but we did have a little bit of a controversy out there with the goal ups and the scoreboard out at Norwood. The West Adelaide bloke kicked a point there late in the game and thought they had won the game, whereas the scoreboard hadn't put up a point that Norwood just kicked a while ago. So the Westies thought they won, which they didn't. It was a draw.
I think they're still struggling to work out that new scoreboard at West Adelaide. I think they might have slipped the button, and luckily for West Adelaide, didn't say they were a point in front, and they didn't try and kill the clock or anything, and they actually still tried to chase the game and got a point out of the game. So a bit of controversy there, and disappointing way to finish their season at home, West Adelaide.
Yeah, we like to keep it in footy, miss a goal that cost the Crows, scoreboard wrong at Westies. We like to keep it weak. The other interesting one though, mate, Crows and Sturt. Crows had a lot of players out. I think most people thought Sturt would get over the Crows in this one.
I think Thursday night when the teams came out and you saw that the Crows had managed Strawn and Jack Madgen and Matty Wright, you probably would have thought that they're pretty much waving the white flag on that game on the weekend, and it turns out they played some really, really good footy in that game on the weekend and ran over the top of Sturt in the second half, who have got some issues of their own. They were very lucky to beat Central District the week before, and continue just struggling to find their best footy after that really hot start. They were 8-0, and I think they've lost 5 or 6 games in the back half of the season.
Let's get on to it, mate, because we touched on it. Glenelg, Adelaide and Sturt, they're pretty set 1, 2, 3. Then we've got Port, Centrals, North. One of them's got to drop out of the 5, and the next round kind of sets it up pretty nicely, mate. So Centrals v Port at Centrals. Yes, so Centrals win, they're in. If Port win, they're in.
There is still a way for Centrals to get in if they do lose. They have to lose by less than North Adelaide at that point. So it'll be a really interesting game at Elizabeth Oval. Centrals have been a much better team at Elizabeth Oval, but they're the second lowest scoring team in the competition, Central District. And I just wonder with Port, potentially if they get another 1 or 2 back in their AFL side, Dixon and these types, whether they've got enough to match Port's firepower up forward with Fantasia and Evans and these type of guys in that forward half. Whether if Port kick 12 or 13 goals, I don't know whether Central District can match them.
And the other game is, of course, North and Sturt. It's like it's almost set up.
Yep.
Well, it is set up. It's set up for an unbelievable finish.
It was a fixture that cost North Adelaide in the last round a couple of years ago. They blew a double chance against Sturt. They were 8 goals to none down at quarter time in that game in 2021, and it probably cost them a tilted a flag that year. So North will be really out to rectify that. They were really poor on Saturday. I know they had a few out with Campbell Coombs suspended and Aaron Young injured, and they're not going to get Aaron Young back this week by the sounds of it. So it's going to be a really interesting game for them to see how they go. It's a really big game for Jacob Surgeon, I think, as well, in the long term as well. And they really, if they get in, they're going to be quite a dangerous team.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Luke. That's exactly what I was going to, my point. If North get in, they are a danger. They are. I know a couple of the coaches out there.
You know a couple of coaches out at North. I'm just trying to think, the teams that have been most consistent this year, probably in Adelaide and Glenelg, they've been the 2, and Sturt, so you kind of look at it, they're all dangerous teams if they're going. The trouble is who's going. It's hard to get a read on it right now.
Glenelg, their ruck issues have reared ahead with Cam McGree being injured the last few weeks as well. So he should be back this week or potentially for the first final. So he makes a massive difference to that team because he gives their midfield a really good look. Yeah. Glenelg have got such a potent forward line that I think they're going to be really hard to stop whoever they play. So guys like Lockie Hosey and Liam McBean and Luke Reynolds, they're going to kick a lot of goals in those finals. So if they can get Riley McGree back and the midfield can give them really good service. Adelaide are a little bit of a wild card in terms of of what they get back. So obviously it's going to be a fair chunk of guys that played on the weekend, but they should get Mark Keane back. James Borlace is another one they'll get back. Nan Curvis is another one they'll get back for finals. Matt Crouch is actually eligible as well, so he's another one that potentially comes in. So if they get 14 or 15 of those type of guys, you don't know what they're going to dish up either. So I think they're a clear 1 and 2, especially given Sturt's second half of the year. But yeah, when you get to September and Adelaide Oval, weird things can happen sometimes.
Which one would worry you the most? If Central's got through, they don't seem to be, from what I'm hearing, they're not really going to change the finals format too much. But we're more concerned if it's a North or if it's a Port. They seem to be the two that might be the sleeper that could go all the way.
It's a massive thing for Port Adelaide if they get in for their AFL side. So because they've got the double chance, they can play all the way through. So they don't have to, like the Crows will be limited to players that are qualified as of next week, whereas Port Adelaide will get carte blanche with their team. So if Charlie Dixon doesn't play this week, he can get up and potentially play the first final for Port Adelaide next weekend because they can do what they like with their team.
Yeah.
So they're going to have that luxury pretty much through to a preliminary final at SANFL level. So they're going to be really dangerous if they get in and they can put a full team out on the park. North Adelaide are one of these teams where they just haven't been able to get a full team out. Aaron Young's still missing, Jake Patmore's still missing, Jesse White retired last week, Campbell Coon missed with suspension on the weekend. They just haven't been able to put their best 22 out on the park, whereas Port Adelaide can potentially get there and on a ground that guys would have played at Adelaide Oval with a full team and ability to do what they like with it could be really dangerous as well.
Yeah.
And North Adelaide's starting to look like Geelong. I mean, Geelong win the grand final last year and can't make the finals now. North Adelaide played in the grand final, losing it. They look like they might not make the finals. An interesting one, isn't it?
It is definitely. I think they've just been so injury hit and they just never got going. Like really from that first round 2 loss to Central District at Elizabeth on Good Friday, we sort of thought, gee, that was a really a surprising loss, and but they've been so inconsistent across the whole course of the season, and I think it's indicative of the whole competition. Really, you look at a team. They just haven't, they've blooded some kids at times this year and they've gone with their experienced guys at other times and just haven't found that right mix at all. And we've seen that with a few other teams, like South Adelaide are in the same boat and the Eagles as well. They've gone real kid heavy in the second half of the season. So I think it's a bit of fluctuation just in the way that teams are building their squads as well.
All right, let's put the heat on you, mate. Eagles, West Adelaide.
I think the Eagles will win at home. That was a fantastic win last week against Glenelg. They'll fare well Jay Cheaty this week, who's pulled up after 4 years, and what he's accomplished in just 4 years at that footy club. I think it's 2 flags, and I think 15 players have been drafted to the AFL in his time just at the Eagles. So I think they'll send him out a winner at Woodville Oval on Saturday afternoon.
Can the Dogs beat Port?
I don't think so. I think Port Adelaide they're a much better side now than what they were 5 or 6 weeks ago. I think with their AFL ins coming back and these guys coming back more and more, I think they'll throw a full kit at this weekend because it's a really important. It's a more important game for them at SANFL level than it is at AFL level.
Yeah.
Tyson Goldsack said that after the game last week that he's played them at VFL level where you haven't been in, and when you have been in, and those extra minutes and extra game time you can get are so important to those flag tilts.
North and Sturt?
I'm going to tip Sturt. I just can't trust North Adelaide anymore, unfortunately. I just think after last weekend when they were playing at home, but they could come out and be 7 goals to none at quarter time, or they could be 7 goals to none down at quarter time. So I'm going to tip Sturt in that game, but I think it'll be a really close game.
Glenelg should beat South, mate.
I do. I think South Adelaide will probably put the cue in the rack. Matty Broadbent's last game, Matty Rose's last game, and they're just a team that's forgotten how to win. A few more injuries on the weekend, so I think Glenelg should win and lock up the minor premiership.
Crows will get Norwood?
I think so. Norwood seem to play the Crows really well, but it'd be interesting to see what the Crows do. They're going to have to send players to Perth as well, so they may field a weaker side again and be there for the picking for Norwood to finish their season on a high.
At Norwood?
It is at the Parade.
At the Parade.
And they're good there. Norwood are good at the Parade. Maybe we look forward to getting you next week. It's going to be a ripping run into the finals, and it's going to be exciting when the finals start. Luke Marchioro is our special guest, as always, the master of the SANFL. Stay with us. Still, a little bit more to come.